informed management practices. And the speaker of our today's session is Raina Van Brandis. Sorry if I misspelled your name. So welcome everyone to today's session. I'm going to give a bit of the speaker's biography so that you have a bit of information about who is. Reina, after completing a diploma in nature conservation in 1995, Reina worked in the Kruger National Park in Tanzania for 7 years, where his work included biodiversity research, reserve management, and anti-poaching. In 2002, Reina moved to the other island of Seychelles, where he remained for 15 years, establishing new protected areas, implementing long-term monitoring programs and targeted research projects, writing conservation management plans, rehabilitating damaged ecosystems, and supervising postgraduate students. In 2022, Reina achieved his doctorate degree in nature conservation. Congratulations on this. He's currently working for the National Geographic Okavango Wilderness Project in the capacity of research director, leading numerous canoe expeditions of remote African rivers. So I don't want to take much of your time, Reina. So off to you.
I was muted. Thank you very much for the introduction, Diane. Thank you for that. And thanks for everybody coming and listening here today. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you. I'm going to just go across to, I'm going to share my screen quickly. Okay. My biography says that I'm the research director of the National Geographic Okavango Wilderness Project, which I am, but our new organization, the Wild Bird Foundation of America, I'm also the research director there because the two organizations are strongly aligned, and the foundation is our expeditionary arm of work that we do as part of the Wild Bird Foundation and the Wild Bird Trust. The National Geographic Okavango Wilderness Project was started on doing this same work that the foundation does now, but the Okavango Wilderness Project remained in the Okavango Basin, which is mostly our home. So there we've settled down now, and we have labs in Angola, Botswana, Namibia. We employ 60 people, and we are now challenging conservation problems that we originally identified on our expeditions. That being said, the Wild Bird Foundation of America, that is not its objective. The objective of the Wild Bird Foundation of America is to conduct baseline river surveys throughout Africa, and yeah, that's what we do. And if we, a baseline, what is a baseline river survey? What we do is we do a continuous survey of a particular river from its very source to its very end. We're currently busy with the Zambezi. That's a 3,500 kilometer long river. That expedition would take us, that is 6 expeditions that we tie together over a span of about 2 years. But then, of course, all rivers that are generally shorter or around 1,000 or 1,500 kilometers, we'll do it all in one go. We'll typically take canoes. We like mokoros, which are traditional dugout canoes. They're replicas, fiberglass replicas. And we very systematically and slowly start at the source and move our way down the river, recording a lot of things. I'll share those with you in a minute. But the purpose of that is to establish the current river health index. What is happening on the river? How does this river compare to other rivers in Africa? Where are the conservation opportunities? Conservation opportunities can be things like going past a community and seeing that there's perhaps a business model that could perhaps change the people of the river, change them from perhaps taking too much fish out and doing something else which will still benefit them economically and sustain their livelihoods, while also doing something to improve the river's ecosystem. Our focus is on the people of the river. We never want to impact people along the river. People are most important. What we're trying to do with these baseline surveys is ensure that throughout time that the river, the ecosystem services that these rivers provide remain intact so that people can continue to benefit from the river. Why baselines? Without a baseline, how are you going to know in the future if anything's changed on the river? In the 1960s, a man by the name of Pauly coined this phrase, the shifting baseline syndrome. It's basically that if your grandfather might tell you stories about catching fish on the river, he would go out on a Sunday and catch 20 fish and come home, and that for him would be a reasonable catch. Your grandfather passes on, and then your father maybe catches 10 fish, and when it comes to you and your children, you're catching maybe 1 fish, but you're still of the opinion that, even you go fishing and you don't catch any fish, you think, well, this has been a bad day. If you catch 2 fish, you'll think, wow, look, there's still fish in this river. But in fact, your granddad was catching 20 fish in the river. So information gets lost after many years, and people just accept the norm as it is. Setting a baseline and documenting it properly and making sure that the data is secure. This prevents any arguments in the future of whether a river has gone in a certain direction. Perhaps the river's got worse, perhaps the river's got better. Either way, it is very important to have these baselines. Otherwise, the decision makers have a tough time making decisions, and decisions are made too rapidly and not really based on any kind of science. So that is essentially what we do. And our typical chain of events, as we decide to go and embark on an expedition, we first do a very detailed desktop and literature survey. We then establish partnerships, which is where this process that I'm doing now with my colleagues, yourselves sitting here and listening to me. And then we strive to attain, obviously, the relevant permissions and permits. We do a small reconnaissance expedition to go and meet people and move around and see how we can do this expedition. And then we conduct the expedition, and afterwards we disseminate the results. There'll be more detail on that. Like I said, we prefer using canoes. We never take motorized boats. They're too fast. They are, we don't really blend in with the environment. We'd like to ask people subtle questions as we go down the rivers, and we just find ourselves a lot more amicable and a lot more approachable to the locals and everyone surrounding us if we paddle down in recognizable vessels. We pack everything we need into these vessels, and we can be quite self-sustaining. If there's places that have rapids and things, then we can change into different vessels which we carry with us. So we also have a support vehicle, or several support vehicles typically, that follow the expedition. We eat very simple food. We just eat rice and beans essentially, which is a healthy diet, one-sided but healthy. And we'll typically be between 5 or 10 boats with 2 people in each boat, and we make our way down the river. So the data that we collect, sorry, excuse this, there's no other way for me to portray this because we do collect quite a lot of data. We can loosely divide our data to continuous monitoring along the entire river. Then we have fixed site where we stop, and we have opportunistic sampling. The continuous monitoring along the river, we count things like biodiversity, which includes all birds. We count every single bird we see. The person sitting at the back of the canoe is typically the observer, and that person will then call to the person sitting in front of the canoe the sightings, and that person in the front will report everything they see on a survey 1 to 3 form, which is and somebody is got their and we also have a 360-degree camera which takes a picture every minute, and we assemble that in Google style I think somebody's got their mic. If we ask this person with a mic on just to switch their mic off, please. I can't hear myself.
Jill, can you please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then we record things like fires, invasive plants. We count agriculture, but agriculture is also part of a land use change analysis, which we do as part of our report at the end. We have several geospatial ecologists that work on our team. We record all domestic animals, and then importantly, we count all humans. And we record what they're busy doing. We record the different fishing methodologies that they use, and pretty much what people are doing as we're going down the river. And then also the infrastructure, specifically, importantly, abstractions, we record those. Then every 10 kilometers, we stop, we record a fixed site, where we will then do detailed water quality parameters, which includes the standard measurements of pH, turbidity, ORP. I'm not going to read all of those to you. We also do nitrates and phosphates, and we do pathogens as well. We look at E. coli's, and then we take a water sample with us, which we will then do more detailed analysis into. We can look at chemicals and heavy metals and other pathogens and things. We also, if we can get our permits into place, do fixed point aerial photography with drones. We use other software to do biomass assessments of riparian forest for future comparison, and other things with drones. Then every 50 kilometers or so, we will stop and extract eDNA from the river. Environmental DNA, which we then will eventually we'll do the DNA extractions at our laboratory in Botswana, Maun, and then send those off to be analyzed in mass spectrometers in other parts of the world. We also do a SAS, which is an analysis of the macroinvertebrates in the river. Macroinvertebrates are obviously very good bioindicators. So their species composition and abundances are a very good indicator of river health at that site. Then we will also use an ADCP, an acoustic Doppler current profiler, which will do on-the-spot water discharge measurements. So we can see work out water budgets, which tributaries are adding most to the river, how does the river grow as we go down it. Very important information, obviously, especially with transboundary rivers. Then opportunistic sampling, we put out bat recorders at night, we put out fishing nets, we take sometimes electrofishers with us, we put out traps to see if there's yabbies in the river, etc. That is a basic rundown of the data. There are other things. I did that quite quickly, but yeah, that's the basic rundown. The outputs that come from all of this. Sorry, before I do that, I'll explain some of those pictures there. You can see on the top right, a gentleman there is taking an eDNA sample from the river. And then top left is the FIKE net. Bottom left is a water quality sonde that is being put into the water to test water quality. and then the acoustic Doppler profiler being towed behind Mokoro there for a river discharge measurement. So the outputs that we produce are obviously the raw data which we share. We like to be open source, but if there are any, if the governments of the particular country that we are working in would like to keep some of the data confidential, we fully respect that, but we do strive for open source. We then produce a full report, which is typically around about 100 pages, which includes a land use change analysis and other desktop related work. We also produce a short 2-page glossy summary report, which will just have the very succinct results and recommendations on it. Then there's a 3-degree image tour, a 360-degree image tour. I'll show you an example of that quickly. So all those pictures that we take are assembled. You can see it's 360, so you can pan around. The camera is set up underneath like this. It cancels its own tripod out. And then you can click down the river anywhere you like. And then you can look around. You can see the vegetation. You can see a lot of things. We are using this right now to classify satellite-derived information about riparian vegetation. And there's lots of other things that you can do. And then you can just go scroll down the river as you like, or you can set a time-lapse kind of thing. Anyways, there's lots to look at. I don't know why this guy's not in his Mokoro, but anyways. Then we also have, we produce an Esri product. This is a web app. And this visualizes all the data. So a user can, this is also an open source link. So this is the Kavango River in Namibia and in Angola. We do this river every 2 years or so because it has a lot of impacts and pressures. And then you can switch on various things. For example, the wetland birds. You can see this is where the majority of the birds were spotted. And there happens to be a conservancy there, which is a great result. Or you can drill down deeper into the various birds. You can look at crakes. You can add. I mean, it goes on and on. And then here you can see for human impacts. You can see where the people were. Then you can overlay the various things and see how they are impacting each other, if at all. And then we have our you can see an example of where our survey sites are. See, those are all 10 kilometers apart, and then the bigger orange ones are our big survey sites where we did the eDNA analyses and things. So this is one of the products that we give out. Then symposiums we do. We're doing one in 2 weeks' time about the Kavango River. We'll call together all the main stakeholders and role players that are involved in the river, including communities and NGOs and government. And we will create a symposium around that, and we will then present our data and perhaps start forging a path towards addressing some of the conservation concerns, if any, going forward. We also produce scientific publications when we can, if we find interesting relationships. Sometimes the water budgets are typically very interesting. We like to publish on those. So far, over the last 10 years or so, we've published 53 scientific peer-reviewed papers. Then there's the capacity building aspect of these expeditions. We typically will take 2 or so, perhaps sometimes more, people from the local communities that know the rivers as guides or as logistics staff to help us go down the river. And then we also like to take 2 scientists from in-country scientists, which could either be students that are working towards their masters or PhDs that could benefit from collecting data with us or work with us, or we can take scientists from established institutions that have a vested interest in the river. Anyways, we like to take people with us, in-country people with us. And then there's potential media assets that come out. And just as a last slide, just to show you what we've done already, this year is mostly centered around Angola, Namibia, Zambia, Botswana, Zimbabwe. We've done so far 30 river expeditions in this way, covering over 17,000 kilometers. Now in 2024, we're planning 15 expeditions, a total of about 6,000 kilometers. And we've, of course, collaborated with a large number of people, including governments, academias, communities, NGOs. We are very interested in doing some of the rivers that flow out of Rwanda into the Nile Basin, such as the Akagera, Korongo, and other rivers. And I hope that this discussion can start moving towards that ultimate goal. Anyways, thank you for listening. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Reina, for your great presentation, and congratulations to you and your team. You're doing a tremendous job. Your outputs are quite informative and are really very necessary for decision making. So for this time, I would like to welcome questions, suggestions, or any input from our listeners. Thank you. Anyone who has a question or any input, the floor is yours. So since I'm not seeing anyone right now, I can start with my question. So you say that your data are available for everyone who wants to use them. So are you limited to the countries where Deliver falls in, or they are open for everybody from everywhere in the world? Like, for example, if I'm interested in any data set from your data, can you share with me those data if there is no restriction from those governments? Thank you.
Yes, we strive for complete open access. So if a student in a neighboring country would like to use data, they would be welcome, unless because we'll always have formal permits with the relevant government branches, and we will discuss data sharing with them. We will suggest open access, complete open access, but if that is not the want from the relevant governments, we will of course then restrict some of the data. And then there's ways to visualize data without providing the actual hard verified data that can be used in scientific publications. For instance, this tool that I showed you, the web app, that should be open access to anyone. It's a great way to see what's going on there. But anybody that then would like the actual raw data, that then would be have to first clear with the particular government.
All right, thank you so much. We have a question in the chat box from Hilali McBean. So her question is, can you mention specific applications and users of the data for conservation or human well-being?
Sorry, I didn't hear that properly. Say that again, please.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat box.
Let me see quickly. Can you mention specific applications and users of the data conservation? Well, for instance, somebody wants to perhaps perhaps the government is thinking about building a hydroelectric scheme. They would then, have biodiversity data. They would have water discharge data and water quality data. they would then have to base, if they wanted to, of course, they then have a little bit of science there where they can perhaps position that hydroelectric scheme, or perhaps it's a massive center pivot farm. They would then have to think about where to put it based on some of that data, or at least they could use some of that data to inform themselves better, and make better decisions about the river, for instance.
Thank you. We're still welcoming questions and inputs. Yes, Jibril. Yes, Jibril,
thank you very much. Yes, okay. Thank you very much for wonderful presentation. And this project is very, very interesting, and it is going to help, I know. Just I would like to know, like, you have a big data set and very many, and I want to know, like, what are the characters or the criteria for you to publish some of them to inform some other people who are even aware of the scope where you are working from, and like, how are you informing like a community about what you are doing, apart from like saying to the government or collaborating with the government?
So we will always, when we do our reconnaissance trip, we would go with somebody, obviously, in country, and actually start at the source of the river, go and find the source, and then slowly move down. And through that process, we will introduce ourselves to the local districts, to the district commissioners, and report in and make them aware of us coming down the rivers eventually, if that answers your question there. And then we would rely on our partners in Rwanda to help us disseminate the data and to bring some awareness to what we are doing and why we are doing it. And then as we go down the river, of course, we often speak to the local communities. We typically always need to ask for permission. When we might want to sleep on the riverbank, we end up talking to a lot of people, and we typically always end up speaking to the community leaders and informing them of what we do.
Thank you so much, Roy. So you've been mentioned that you have partners in Rwanda. What are those partners, and are you working on any river in Rwanda?
No, we are not yet. This is kind of our first meeting. Our CEO, David Garrett, he's in this meeting as well. I know he's been having some discussions with people in Rwanda. But it's a very early stage, and I was given the opportunity to present to you, so I jumped on it.
That sounds quite interesting. I can see another question in the chat box from Cora Keegan. He's asking about the tools you are using to record birds, reptiles.
We use a product called Survey 123, which is an Esri product. So it's we're just on handheld devices. We just use regular iPhones, and it's a form on the iPhone that we then record the data on that, and then in the evenings we will then upload that to the internet. We carry satellite internet provision for safekeeping, just in case we don't want to lose the data, of course.
stories. They are kind of big. We saw that you've already for the that already analyzed your data to can share some of the interesting results for our group from the mentoring that you've been doing.
Yes, I can share that link that I showed you just now. I can share that and you guys can click on it. Let me just quickly do that in the chat.
Thank you so much. I can see Gilbert is back. I welcome Gilbert to give you an insight.
Thank you very much. You mentioned that you use some convertebrates for some scores to assess the water quality of that river in especially on different sites. Do you collect them and you go along the way, or just you collect them and you use them and you return them back to the river?
We would like to keep them. They obviously are insects mostly. Here and there, snails and mollusks and things, but mostly it's insects. But this again depends on the permits that we get from the relevant departments. We are able to just count them and let them go, or we prefer to keep a sample. And we can keep a duplicate sample, one which can stay in Rwanda and one which if we can get permission, take back and keep it in our lab in Maun, where we keep all of our samples from all the expeditions.
This is what a military body looks like.
Okay, thank you very much. Once you reach in the area, you look for some partners. What if you find some projects being carried out in that river you are interested in? Do you join them, or you prefer to join, or you call some locals to join you in your projects, or just you support the existing projects as long as they are in line with your project?
Yes, if there's projects that are aligned with the work that we want to do, we will certainly partner with them. We don't want to reinvent the wheel in any place, so we want our data to complement work that is already happening in Rwanda. We know that there is quite a bit of work happening on the rivers already, and we would seek to complement that and not reinvent the wheel. And if there are people already working on it, then we will most certainly speak with them and partner with them, and yes.
So do you have rivers of your interest here in Rwanda, or you can work on any?
Initially we would be interested in the rivers that flow into the Nile Basin, and then once we've done those, I think the important ones there are the Akagera or the Nyabarongo. I'm probably saying the names wrong. Sorry about that, but there's a few others, but we haven't prioritized them properly yet. We still need to do our detailed desktop surveys and form our partnerships. Our partnerships, of course, will help guide that process. And then once we've done the important rivers that flow towards the Nile, we would then like to move over to the Congo Basin and do those rivers that flow towards the Congo Basin.
Thank you so much. For capacity building is very important here, and we want to build strong conservationists in the future. So how do you collaborate with academia, or what is the chance for students to collaborate with you on your different projects?
So we can, of course, only take one or two students with us on the river. Depending on if there are several good projects, we can try and take more, but we can't commit to that at an early stage. But any projects that are aligned like that, we would like to take people, local students with us. But we also typically what we do is we we try to put some funding aside to perhaps grant a scholarship, particularly if that student is working on the same things that we are working on, or if that student's work is complementary to what we are trying to achieve with our reports, and if we find a concerning or a conservation problem along the way, then we like to fund a student that will look deeper into these potential problems. You know, in partnership with one of our partners that we would have identified throughout the process. So we do offer scholarships in that regard. And you know, we have also, you know, many of our staff that work with us are people that we worked with in other countries, and they worked well with us, and we hire them on as part of the team, and then we take them with us to other countries as well. But that all depends on the expedition, of course.
Thank you so much. We still have questions. You have a question in the chat box. Are you expecting to get back to the rivers where you had covered already?
Yes, we do that sometimes. It depends on the river. If we find that the river is nice and healthy, then there's no immediate need to return, unless, of course, that changes. Unless, you know, somebody decides to do you know, a massive agricultural scheme, but I'm talking really massive. You know, one or two agricultural schemes typically don't do much. I'm saying typically don't do much to the river. But for example, the Kavango River, you know, it has serious pollution problems, overfishing problems, etc. And you know, some conservation efforts have been implemented. And then in an effort to monitor the success of those, or lack of success, we return to that particular river every time. It depends in some degree on funding and logistics. But if there is a need, we certainly return. And that's when the data becomes quite powerful. We compare multiple year trend lines and see, okay, there definitely is something going on here that we need to address. The initial baseline just sets that benchmark, and then for the future we would like to repeat it as well. But you know, that's part of the capacity building, is that we would like to leave behind people that are motivated to repeat these surveys down the line. You know, perhaps with some of our help, but predominantly as a Rwandan effort. So we do our best to train those Rwandans that would come with us on the expedition to repeat these kind of surveys. It's quite a simple procedure once the training has been done, and it's totally be repeated by a Rwandan team.
Alright, Serena, you've been collecting a bunch of data by my inches. How do you interpret the effect of climate change on those rivers?
Well, that's of course a more difficult kind of academic-based thing. We, like I said, we have at least two. We're probably hiring more geospatial ecologists. They also specialize in climate change, and they will use, you know, satellite derived products to see change over time. And then our work on the ground, the data we collect on the ground can then be used to fine tune or to calibrate what the satellite derived data is showing. In other basins, the Okavango Basin, what we did is we installed a series of hydrological monitoring stations. hydrometeorological monitors. These are automated stations that monitor water quality, water level, and weather at certain stations. In Okavango Basin, we have 12 of these, and that data all feeds into regional efforts, into government databases, and that then gets used for really good decision making, early flood warnings, and then of course that very good fine scale measurement of climate change, at least since those stations were put up.
I was asking this question because we have a river in the north. It's called River Sebeya. I know it's not on your agenda right now, but it's a river that has been causing so much damage. Have been causing loss in human being, livestock, and other infrastructures. But we are like kind of not having like a team that we can like do like projection of what will happen maybe next year in the 2 or 5 years coming. So I think if we can have a team that can do this kind of monitoring and be able to do those projections, to be able to advise on the high level decision makers, that can, I think that can save lives here in Rwanda. So if you don't mind, you can add that river on your agenda for the time in the future, so that can also work on that river.
We will certainly consider that for sure. Like I said, we still need to prioritize the rivers that we're doing, and the more that we can do, the better. We do work across several countries, and we have a lot planned. But also we hope that the time that we spend in Rwanda, those rivers that we don't do, we're hoping that the people with whom we build capacity in Rwanda can perhaps take over. There's a lot we can do through assistance and advice, but yes, we still need to do our list of priorities of those targets.
So if you don't have any other questions or suggestions, we can end our meeting. I think thank you very much, Reina, for your presentation and for the clarification you gave to our questions. And I thank everyone in the room for your time to attend, and thank you for your collaboration and being participative. So I wish you a good evening. I don't know if you're all at the same time. Good evening, good afternoon, and see you next week.
Thank you very much. I've placed my email address in the comments column there. So if anybody has more questions or is interested, please feel free to email me, and I will get back to you. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.